Picture the iron jaws of a forgotten furnace clamping down on your soul, its rusted gears grinding out the echoes of overworked men who burned alive in molten hell. Their apparitions now stalking the shadows, desperate to drag the living into their endless cooker of despair where exhaustion turns eternal. Tonight, we claw through a labyrinth of true paranormal horrors across haunted ruins and graveyards, where spectral figures materialize from the mist, orbs pulse with trapped fury, and invisible forces shove and whisper, shattering sanity in places cursed by tragedy and neglect. Proving the dead don't rest, they hunt. We start in the grim heart of Birmingham, Alabama, at Sloss Furnaces, a hulking relic of the industrial boom where pig iron was forged in blistering heat from 1882 to 1971, claiming countless lives through accidents, overwork, and brutal conditions that treated workers like disposable fuel. This site isn't just a monument to steel production. It's a graveyard of exploitation, with men crushed by machinery, scalded by spills, or suffocated in toxic fumes. Their stories fueling local lore of unrest that mirrors the South's painful labor history and cultural tales of vengeful spirits bound to their toil. Beyond the past, Sloss embodies the dark side of progress, inspiring festivals and art that gloss over the blood-soaked foundations, while ghost hunters flock to its decaying structures, drawn by whispers of the damned. The real terror festers in hot spots like the blowing engine room, infamous for clanging pipes and shadowy figures, where overseers like the tyrannical James Slag Wormwood reportedly fell into a furnace in 1906. His death sparking legends of his cruel ghost enforcing eternal shifts. Skeptics chalk it up to echoes, creaks from old metal, or imagination fueled by tours. But eyewitness accounts of full-bodied apparitions and unexplained noises pile up, defying rational excuses with photos and recordings that capture fleeting forms. At the core of this nightmare, ghostly workers manifesting in work gear, their tired eyes locking with the living, radiating intense energy from lives cut short in the long darkness of endless labor. Our first encounter comes from a young man who visited with his dad, camera in hand, sparked by TV shows to explore both history and haunts. My dad and I visited Sloss Furnace for a sightseeing tour. I had my camera for pictures and videos. I have recently become interested in the paranormal after I watched many Ghost Adventures episodes. I saw where they had visited Sloss, and I wanted to go as well, mostly for sightseeing, but also for a small investigation. When I first arrived, I knew about the reportedly haunted blowing engine room. However, I wasn't for sure exactly how to get inside of it, because all except one door was locked, which I found out a little later on. I entered the blowing engine room and just took some pictures first and asked my dad if he would leave me there for a few minutes to do a quick video Shark AVP session. He said sure, and he left the building. I started my video by walking down the side of the big wheels and back through, around the entire building, so I decided to make one more quick pass through the building. And I was almost done with my second pass when I heard some pipes clanging. I said to myself, okay, I'll stay a few minutes longer. I rounded the corner and I looked in the corner of one of the blowing engine wheels, and I saw a man with blue jeans and coveralls and work boots on. I did some history on the uniform. It appears this is the work uniform for an old Sloss worker. We made eye contact, and he looked like he was scared, overworked, and tired. I turned to look at a noise on my opposite side and looked back. He was gone. I felt his presence with me the rest of the time in the blowing engine room. I was once a skeptic, but me and my friends are going back very soon to do a full investigation. That weary figure vanished like smoke, but his drained gaze lingered, a silent plea from the cooker of despair. Doubters might call it a trick of light or fatigue, yet the matching uniform and sudden disappearance add chilling weight, tension coiling in Sloss's rusted veins. What if more workers lurk, ready to pull intruders into their exhausted void? Shifting south to St. Francisville, Louisiana, the Myrtles Plantation stands as a decaying antebellum mansion built in 1796, scarred by slavery, poisonings, and violent deaths, including the infamous tale of Chloe, an enslaved woman hanged for allegedly murdering children with oleander-laced cake in the 1800s. This isn't a romantic Southern estate. It's a pit of betrayal and loss, where owners like the Woodruffs faced ruin after the Civil War, and epidemics ravaged families, embedding grief that seeps into the walls. Culturally, Myrtles weaves into Louisiana's voodoo-tinged folklore and plantation myths, turning it into a magnet for seekers of the occult, where history's shadows blend with tales of cursed mirrors and restless souls. Prime haunts include the famous hallway mirror, said to trap spirits, and the grounds where energies swirl around empty chairs. Skeptics dismiss photos as dust or lens flares, but repeated captures of figures and EMF spikes from unrelated visitors challenge that, with stories of cold spots and apparitions too consistent for coincidence. The heart, ethereal forms in mirrors, and hazy energies manifesting as thick, wavy mists, pulsing with the intense energy of unresolved anguish. One couple from North Louisiana made the 3-hour drive for a weekend stay, prioritizing the paranormal over luxury. We live in North La, about 3 hours from the Myrtles Plantation, so getting there for a weekend is pretty easy for us. Our first visit, we stayed in one of the garden rooms. I have read some reviews that really complain about the accommodations. But like most people interested in the paranormal, that wasn't important to us. We got there in the early afternoon and enjoyed sitting around the patio area and drinking a cold one. Later, we had a wonderful dinner at the Carriage House restaurant and highly recommend that. After dark, we went on the last mystery tour of the evening. The only place that you were allowed to photo was the hallway with the famous mirror and stairs. Well, we weren't disappointed. I had taken a picture of the mirror, and about 45 seconds later, Cindy took one. After we got back home and put them on the computer, we were truly amazed. There in the mirror was the ghost of a man dressed in Civil War-era clothing. Hat, gray suit buttoned up, complete with a Colonel Sanders mustache, just standing there posing. He wasn't in my picture, but was very plain in Cindy's. No one that we have shown the picture to have had any problem picking out the ghost. After the tour, we were wandering the grounds, using an EMF meter, getting almost no readings, maybe a 1 or 2, but nothing consistent at all. We noticed 2 chairs sitting under a tree and started toward that direction. Immediately, the EMF started going nuts and rose to a 4.0 level. Cindy took a picture of the chairs, and the air was full of energy. Not an orb, but the thick, wavy bluish haze with bright streaks that make you think of energy. The second picture, there was less, and it appeared to be dissipating. The third, It was gone. We worked the EMF in the area and found a spike on the other side of the tree and were able to photo it again up higher this time, just not as much as the first two pictures. It sure seemed as though the energies were sitting in the two chairs under the tree. We went back a few months later, really wanting to stay in the main house, and were lucky to get the General Bradford suite. But to our dismay, we weren't able to capture any phenomenon at all this time. We did do some EVP sessions in the room, but without any luck. Took the mystery tour again, but nothing strange in the mirror's pictures this time. Did take our previous pictures and gave to the staff who mentioned our ghost in the mirror to the others on the tour that night. Was a pleasure, as Ms. Hester herself was the one doing the tour. I think the General Bradford suite is a later addition to the house, and am wanting to go back and stay in one of the upstairs rooms. If you are going for any other reason other than ghost hunting, then don't go. You will probably be a little disappointed in the accommodations for the price, but definitely worth the trip for the possibility of experiencing the out of the ordinary. Wouldn't take anything for our pictures on the first trip. Second one disappointing, but as you guys know, it's a special night when it does occur. That Civil War specter posed defiantly in the mirror, vanishing between snaps, while the hazy energy under the tree ebbed like a fading breath, stirring the long darkness of Myrtles' betrayed souls. Cynics could blame photo artifacts, but the timed differences and EMF corroboration lend eerie credibility, dread building in the plantation's overgrown paths. What unseen guests occupy those empty seats, waiting to ensnare the curious? Venturing north to Niagara Falls, Ontario, Canada, Lundy's Lane Cemetery marks the bloody site of the 1814 Battle of Lundy's Lane during the War of 1812, where over 1,700 soldiers fell in brutal hand-to-hand combat, their bodies hastily buried in mass graves amid the chaos that defined the border conflict between British forces and Americans. This isn't a peaceful resting place. It's a scar of imperial strife, with tales of decapitated officers and wounded left to die, reflecting Canada's foundational struggles and cultural narratives of patriotic ghosts haunting historic battlegrounds. Turning quiet tours into brushes with wartime fury, the cemetery itself pulses as a hotspot, with visitors reporting apparitions of uniformed soldiers and unexplained mists near ancient trees and iron fences. Skeptics attribute photos to pareidolia or digital glitches, yet detailed images of figures in period attire, complete with wounds, stack up from multiple sources, too precise for dismissal. Core phenomenon: spectral soldiers and companions manifesting in photos, their bloodied forms bent in eternal vigil, radiating intense energy from unfinished battles. A mother and daughter joined a ghost tour, capturing something unexpected years later. Back in 2005, my daughter and I went with a group of ghost hunters from the haunted Hamilton. We went on a tour to Niagara on the lake and the surrounding area. This area is noticed for the War of 1812 between Canada and the United States. There are stories of haunting at Old Fort George and the Angel Inn, where if you were American and stay at the inn at night, you may be haunted by a ghost. The tour went to Niagara Falls, Ontario, Canada, to Lundy Lane, where the Battle of 1812 was fought. Located here is Lundy Lane Cemetery, where many soldiers had fought and died and buried here. My daughter and I went around looking at names and the dates of these brave men and women who fought in the battle. We took many pictures, and this one special picture caught my eyes a few years later when I enlarge it on my computer. In this picture, you will notice between the black iron fence and the huge trunk tree, you will see very closely a soldier bent down with a woman on his left side, right of him if looking straight at him. He has on a black uniform with 3 white stripes on each of his sleeve. Did some searching. The uniform is of a staff sergeant of a British soldier. He seems to have some blood on his face. The woman has a scarf or cloth over her head, and you can see the outline of her against the trunk of the tree. Those ghostly pair huddled in the photo. The sergeant's bloodied face a grim reminder, emerging only upon enlargement like a hidden wound. Doubters might see shadows and tricks, but the accurate uniform and companion add haunting authenticity, tension mounting among the tombstones. What other fallen warriors crouch unseen, their cooker of despair spilling into the present. Heading to Chattanooga, Tennessee, the Red House Hotel, built in 1926 on the site of an older inn, harbors room 311, linked to Annalisa Netherly, a woman allegedly murdered there in the 1920s by a jealous lover who slit her throat in the bathtub, her screams echoing through decades of renovations. This elegant facade hides a legacy of vice and violence, from Prohibition-era scandals to suicides, culturally tying into the South's haunted hospitality lore, where grand hotels mask sordid pasts, attracting investigators to its opulent yet ominous halls. Room 3-1 throbs with activity, orbs, moved objects, and cold spots, where guests report unease without dread. Skeptics blame dust or pranks, but consistent orb photos from reliable cameras, plus physical anomalies, build a case too solid to ignore. The essence, swirling orbs and relocated items, manifestations of a spirit's playful yet persistent presence in the long darkness of betrayal. A frequent paranormal traveler stayed 2 nights. Skeptical, yet open, have been many times to the Myrtles Plantation in Louisiana, the Crescent Hotel in Eureka Springs, Arkansas, and many other areas reported to have been haunted and experienced absolutely nothing. I recently returned from a 2-night stay at the Red House in Chattanooga, TN and the infamous room 311. During our stay, we took about 300 pictures in the room. Of those, about 30 showed clear orbs, not visible to the naked eye. I used 2 cameras, each digital and simple, sat snapping pictures. There was no mistake, and certainly no trick photography. I have used the same cameras at all other places I have been. The orbs are not dust, nor are they reflections. If anything, I am a skeptic, and to say I was shocked at what I saw on film would be an understatement. Now, although we got many pictures over our 3-day period, and also witnessed a few unexplained activities in the room, there was no feeling of dread or fear at any time in the room. It was just a fantastic stay. The people there are some of the friendliest I have ever met, and the overall trip was fantastic beyond words. We are sure going back. As to one strange happening, the first night when I went to bed, I carefully placed my Crocs beside the bed where I could slip into them easily when I had to get up and use the bathroom. On one occasion, when I got up, one shoe was turned and against the far right wall, and the other was at the foot of the bed. As I said earlier, I am a skeptic. This was my first experience of this type, and it was simply as real as it gets. Those orbs danced in photos, unseen until developed, while the shoes scattered like a mischievous shove, transforming skepticism into belief without terror. Cynics could cite forgetfulness, but the volume of evidence tips the scale, unease simmering in room 311. What playful force rearranges the night, hiding in plain sight? Pivoting to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, the infamous battlefield where the 1863 clash left 51,000 dead or wounded in 3 days of carnage, bodies rotting in fields and makeshift hospitals, birthing legends of phantom soldiers and cries that echo the nation's divided soul. Beyond the war, it's a cultural emblem of American tragedy, with reenactments and museums romanticizing the slaughter while ignoring the spectral remnants, turning visits into unwitting summons of the past's agony. Hotspots like the creek bed, used for disposing amputated limbs, buzz with orbs and physical tugs. Skeptics blame wind or hype, but photos of glowing spheres and reports of smells defy explanation. Core? Orbs trailing visitors and sudden rotting odors, intense energy from the cooker of despair that clings like battlefield mud. A family on vacation dove into a ghost tour, excitement turning eerie. It was July 19th, 2009. My family and I were on our way to Gettysburg, PA, and I was excited to go. After 2 hours, we finally got there. We went to some of the monuments, then went to our hotel room to unpack our stuff. I couldn't wait for that night because we were going on a ghost tour. I kept asking my mom and dad how many minutes until we leave for the tour. The time came we were on our way to the tour. The tour was going good, and then the best part came. It was when the tour guide took us to the creek bed. That's where they would dispose body parts. We were all sitting on the stone ledge, and some lady next to me quickly jumped up saying something pulled her hair. When the tour was over, I was bugging my parents if we can go back to the creek bed. My mom took some pictures, and following me was an orb. The other picture, my brother had an orb right on his head. I thought that was cool. Well, this story gets better. We went back to hotel. We walked because the tour was so close to us. On the way back, we all smelled the smell of something rotting, but there were no trash cans around. It was 12 at night. My dad asked me if I wanted to find Sachs Bridge. I said yes, but my mom and brother stayed behind in the room. We were driving down Millerstown Road near Pumping Station Road on the Confederate side of the battlefield. We didn't find the bridge because it was so dark outside. So we went past the old lookout tower, and I took a few pictures of the woods next to me. I got a ton of orbs. Then my dad took the camera, and he took 3 pictures in a row of the battlefield. And this cannon was in it too. The first one had a few orbs, second one had nothing, third one had a lot. And on the end of the cannon, there was this bright flash on the end of the cannon. We moved a little farther up. My dad couldn't move. And after he said that, I felt very lightheaded. My chest was very tight. I started to shake from the coldness and started to cry for no reason. As soon as we got out of there, we felt fine. We went back to the hotel, and when we came in the room, my mom said my face was pale white. That rotting stench assaulted without source. Orbs swarming photos, culminating in paralyzing cold and tears, a direct assault from Gettysburg's lingering dead. Doubters might say suggestion or illness, but the timed flashes and physical symptoms argue otherwise, fear escalating on those bloodied fields. What invisible wounds inflict such sudden despair? Crossing into Canada to Manotick, Ontario, Watson's Mill, erected in 1860 over the Rideau River, witnessed the tragic death of Ann Currier, in 1861 when her dress snagged in machinery, flinging her to instant doom amid rumors of native burial grounds disturbed by construction. This water-powered gristmill symbolizes early Canadian industry's perils, with workers drowned or crushed, culturally linking to indigenous spirits and colonial exploitation. Now, a museum where investigations reveal shy entities watching from the shadows. Levels from basement to attic hum with activity, motion detectors blaring, pendulums swinging, EMF spikes signaling presences like drowned boy Timmy. Skeptics cite group dynamics or equipment faults, but personal communications and dreams post-visit defy logic. The heart? Interactive spirits responding via tools, their intense energy bridging respect and upset, pulling participants into the long darkness of accidental ends. A couple attended a public investigation, blending excitement with revelation. Back on November 1st, 2008, there was a public investigation with a local ghost hunter group over at Watson's Mill in Manotick, Ontario. They made their investigation open to the public so that those who are interested in the paranormal can see what it is that they and similar groups do. We bought our tickets in advance when my husband heard about it on the local radio station, Y101. I had never been to a paranormal investigation, and I was quite excited. When I called for the tickets, I asked if I could bring a camera, and they were all for it. I wasn't too sure what to expect, and I was thinking it would be more like the haunted walk tours of Ottawa. But regardless, I knew I was going to have a lot of fun. If there were going to be spirits there, I knew that they all had to be friendly. I felt that the local ghost hunting group would not allow an investigation if the place had evil, angry spirits and jeopardized the safety of the public. So my husband and I arrived there with roughly 30 other people from the public. I met the team that was hosting it. They seemed friendly and eager to teach us what they knew. At the beginning, they explained the history of the mill and the tragedy that befallen Anne Currier, the young wife of Joseph Currier, who owned a partnership of the mill at that time. The mill was built by Moss Kent Dickinson and his partner, Joseph Currier, in 1860. FYI, Canada became a county on July 1st, 1867. As the story goes, they were just newlyweds. In fact, they just came back from their month-long honeymoon when Joseph wanted to show his wife the mill. Unfortunately, as he was showing her around, her dress got caught in the machinery and she was killed when she was flung into a pole. She died instantly, but she was not the only one to haunt the place. Their research suggests that there is a group of native Indians, and they suspect that the mill was either built on Indian land or built over an old Indian graveyard. This group, native Indians, tend to be shy to the public and prefer to just watch what's going on. They also think a couple of mill workers still haunt the place. They just don't know if they are spirits or residual in nature. Once we were given a history of the place, they split us up into 3 groups. One group went to the top level where Anne died. Another group was on the main floor, and the third group went to the basement. All 3 groups would rotate places after spending 90 minutes at one area. My group was group 3, and we started up at the top level of Watson's Mill. They explained to us the importance of doing base readings with temperature and EMF meters. They also explained the reason why one should turn off all electricity of the building that you are investigating and use only the power sources of their battery packs. They showed us their equipment, thermometers, EMFs, voice recorders, motion detectors, video cameras, etc. They asked a lot of questions to any possible spirits that might be there with us. Unfortunately, we didn't get any hits. Once our time was up, we headed to the ground floor. There, they explained to us the use of pendulums and dowsing rods, and how they are used to communicate with the spirits. We had more luck here. The team managed to get in touch with Anne and asked her a bunch of questions. They then asked us, the public, if we wanted to try using the items. 3 of us stepped forward. I used the pendulum and 2 others used the dowsing rods. Under their guidance, I introduced myself and asked if Anne was here. The pendulum stated, swinging forwards and backwards, implying yes. I was shocked. I checked my hand. It was not moving. I checked my arm. It was not moving. I looked to see if there was a fan blowing on the pendulum to make it move. There was none, nor did I feel any drafts. I couldn't believe it. A possible spirit was communicating to me. I was on cloud 9. I was that ecstatic. My logical side said, how can this be? But I ruled out the possibilities. So therefore it had to be a spirit. Sherlock Holmes said it quite eloquently. Eliminate all other factors, and the one which remains must be the truth. So after a few more questions, such as, is your husband here? Did you die here? Are there other spirits with us besides you and your husband? Our time was up. I was instructed to say, thank you. It was a pleasure talking with you. But now I must end this session by the team to show respect to the spirits there. Once we were done, we headed towards the basement. Once there, they told us the history of a little boy, they think is named Timmy, that drowned accidentally. The mill was built over a river. Then they explained to us how to use EMF meters and asked us if anyone wanted to try. My hand shot up quickly. My husband chuckled at my enthusiasm. He was happy that I was having a blast here. So we were divided up into smaller groups, and we went around the basement using the EMF meters to see if we got any hits. Now, during this time, the motion detectors were going off like mad, but that was because we were moving around and setting them off. Bad news is that the EMFs we were using didn't make a sound. So we grouped back up to try a new tactic. This time, he wanted one of the women in the group to talk with Anne and see if she would respond by using the motion detector. I volunteered for this, and they gave me a list of questions to ask her. I started asking her questions, and nothing happened at first. Then all of a sudden, the motion detectors started going off like crazy after each question I asked, to the point that it kept going on and off even though I was not asking any questions. I was confused and asked one of the members what was going on. He replied that Anne is very upset that we are using machines to check to see if she was with us, when she knew darn well that we knew she was there. They investigated the place a few times before this. I replied, is there a possibility that she's upset with me? Once I asked that, and before the team member replied, the motion detector started going off like mad. He had to shout over the noise. Yes, it seems as if she's upset with you. Needless to say, I was shocked. I knew I was following their instructions exactly as they instructed. I was being respectful towards the spirits, if any were there. Maybe, just maybe, deep down, I knew she was there, and I just didn't trust myself enough to know she was there. I needed the machines to confirm what I was feeling. Depressed, I spoke up. Anne, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make you upset. I'm just new at this. Please forgive me." Then the sound stopped, and the team leader smiled at me and said, "She forgives you." The motion detector went off one more time, as if to confirm what the team leader said. Just then, the EMF meter went off near the back of the basement, where the stairs are leading up. There is a wooden crate there that was believed to have been used by Timmy when he was alive. He loved to play hide and seek, and that was his favorite spot. In my excitement, I, as well as others, rushed off to that spot to see what was going on. And yes, I completely forgot to say goodbye to Anne. 3 women were already there and were asking questions. They looked up in our direction and said that the needle on the EMF meter kept jumping after every time they asked a question. "Is your name Timmy?" 1 beep for yes. "Did you die here?" Yes. "Did you drown here?" Yes. "Was this crate your favorite hiding spot?" Yes. "Did you like playing hide and seek?" Yes. "Were you bullied by other kids?" 2 quick beeps for no. "Are you aware of the other spirits here at the mill?" No. So after a while of asking questions, it was time for us to leave and have the team pack up and head home. We ended up doing a closing ceremony saying goodbye and thank you to the spirits. As the crowd started to clear, my husband and I hung back. There was a ton of questions I wanted to ask them, mostly of where did they buy the items, eBay for the temperature thermometer and EMF meters, Best Buy or Future Shop for the voice recordings, and Crystal Dawn for the pendulum. They invited me to join their workshops if I had any more questions for them. It's open to the public, and they meet once a month. So off we went home, talking excitedly as to what happened that night. I went to sleep and I had the most wonderful dream. In that dream, it took place in summer. The sun was shining, not a cloud in the sky. Anne and Timmy was there smiling and laughing with me. At least I assume it was them. In my dream, I was convinced it was them, even though I had no clue what they looked like in life. We were in an amusement park. I was very happy, and I knew that in the dream we were simply enjoying each other's company and getting to know one another as friends. I went to the workshop the following week, telling them what I just told you about the dream, and showed them pictures I have taken that had a ton of orbs. I don't believe in orbs. Too easy to discredit IMO, and the mill was incredibly dusty. But saying that, I do have to admit that I find the orbs to be very beautiful to look at. They confirmed that it was possible Anne and Timmy visited me that night and wanted to let me know that they liked me. I am looking forward to when they do another public investigation over at Watson's Mill. I'll be able to learn more from my new friends. So for being a skeptical believer, I have to admit this. For Watson's Mill, I am definitely a believer. That pendulum swung on its own. Motion detectors erupted in anger, then forgiveness, and the dream sealed a bond, turning doubt to conviction in Watson's spectral embrace. Skeptics might blame subconscious movement, but the unprompted responses and post-event vision challenge that. Anxiety rising in the mill's creaking depths. What forgiveness do these spirits demand from those who doubt? Staying in Canada, Ottawa's haunted walk tours delve into sites like the Carleton County Jail, now a hostel, operational from 1862 to 1972, where inmates endured overcrowding, executions, and madness, including wrongful hangings like Patrick James Whelan's in 1869 for assassinating a politician. This grim edifice reflects Canada's penal history, blending with urban legends of tormented souls. culturally a draw for thrill seekers exploring the capital's dark underbelly. Cells and halls echo with heavy breathing and anxiety. Skeptics point to acoustics or psychology, but personal sensations and isolation resist easy debunking. Core? Sensory overloads like pacing urges and breaths, intense energy from the cooker of despair that imprisons visitors momentarily. A skeptical believer joined a tour, testing her senses. I have been a lurker to this site since the beginning of November 2008. Only now do I feel comfortable enough to post here. I consider myself to be a skeptical believer in spirits. I believe that they do exist, both good and bad, but I need concrete proof that they are in contact with me. For example, if I feel a cold spot, I check to make sure that it's not the AC or a draft from a window or door. When I was growing up in Montreal, located in the province of Quebec, Canada, I firmly believed that I had the ability to sense spirits. Closest thing I could describe it is like a spidey sense, like how the superhero Spider-Man is able to sense evil before it happens. But for me, I was able to sense if the spirit was good, evil, male, or female, and if there was one or more in a room. I could never see or hear them, just sense them. I was always jealous, in a good way naturally, with the ones that claimed that they could see or hear them. But I always did take what they said with a pinch of salt, since it's too easy to say, yes, I see them, when in fact they don't. Bad news is that there was no one else, either in my family or friends, that could help me develop it. So by the time I was in my early 20s, I lost my ability. I second-guessed myself too much. Thought I was imagining it, going crazy, or wishful thinking. And I think I turned off my ability, if that makes any sense. I grew up as a Roman Catholic, so my faith and strength lie with Jesus and God. At the same time, though, my family taught me to be accepting of other religions, since it's their beliefs, and mine as well now, that all religions are the same. We just have different ways of showing our love to the Creator, whomever he, she, they may be. Now, fast forward a few decades. I now live in Ontario with my hubby. I have always been interested in spirits, and my hubby fully supports me. We have had many wonderful discussions about the afterlife. I just never trusted myself enough to know if I was in company with other spirits. I suspected that I was, but I just didn't know at the time how to get proof. I have heard about the haunted walks of Ottawa. They give guided tours of various locations that are rumored to be haunted. Two famous places in Ottawa are Chateau Laurier and Carleton County Jail, now the HI, Ottawa Jail Hostel. I brought my best friend with me to go to the jail. We had a fun time. I took it in good humor. I believed in the stories on how the prisoners were treated and died, murdered there, and that not all the prisoners were criminals. There were no mental hospitals in that time, so people, both men and women, who had various stages and forms of dementia, stayed there as well. Children would stay there along with their incarcerated mother or father, and if there was no family member to take care of them, the women were separated from the men, and they were housed in another level of the jail. The children would stay with the mothers. I don't know what happened with the daughters who only had their father that was incarcerated. I just hope that the young girls stayed with the women. But that is a question that I will be asking next time I go back. But as to the haunted stories, well, I took everything with a pinch of salt. simply because this is a tourist trap. They do this not only to help preserve the past, but it's also to make money so that they can pay their bills. So the more ghost stories they told, the better. So at one point of the tour, they allowed us to enter the incredibly tiny cells. These cells were only large enough to have a bed and enough space to be able to turn around. There were no toilets. The toilets at that time were just buckets in the hall. Our tourist guide allowed us to enter the cells if we so desired. My friend stayed outside in the hall, but my curiosity got the better of me. I entered one cell and closed the door after me. I sat down the bed, and I immediately felt uncomfortable. Now, whether it's because there was a spirit with me, or my own nerves, being in a cell and having a bad case of claustrophobia. I am not claustrophobic, BTW, because of the incredibly tiny cell. I had an overwhelming urge to pace back and forth. I felt great sadness and anxiety. I also heard heavy breathing. But again, I have no clue if it was my overactive imagination, or a spirit letting me know that I was not alone, or some hidden sound system with a recording, or a live person using a microphone with hidden speakers of someone breathing. Being an extreme amateur, I looked a little bit for any signs of wiring, speakers, hollow walls, etc. I found nothing. Mind you, with that being said, I could have easily passed over the speakers, wires, etc., and just not recognized it for what it is, or just didn't look hard enough. I didn't look through the cot. To this day, I am still undecided if I met something in that cell or not. I would also greatly appreciate any advice you can give me to help me reawaken my ability, if I ever had one, or to be more sensitive to the spirit world. That heavy breathing filled the cell, urging relentless pacing amid waves of sadness, leaving lingering uncertainty. Cynics could attribute it to psychology, but the absence of sources, height,